Hello, everyone. Today I'll be presenting on Chapter 5 of East Asia at the Center by Warren Cohen, titled The Resurgence of Chinese Power and the Coming of Islam. We'll explore how, after the decline of the Mongols' Yuan dynasty, China reasserted itself in East Asia and how Islam spread in Southeast Asia, reshaping regional connections. Okay, to start off with the overview, what this chapter covers, today I'll be talking about the rise and challenges of the Ming Dynasty as described in the textbook. The Ming Dynasty began in 1368 when Zhu Huanzang defeated rival states and pushed the Mongols out of China. From the start, the Ming emperors focused on strengthening central authority and reestablishing the tribute system to show their dominance across all of East Asia. This period is marked by both impressive achievements and ongoing challenges. On one hand, the Ming projected their power outward through the famous naval voyages of Zheng He, which expanded China's influence across Asia and beyond. On the other hand, they constantly faced threats, defending the frontier against Mongols, suppressing rebellions like the Yao uprising in 1464, and eventually confronting new global powers such as the Portuguese arrival in 1517, which disrupted China's control over trade in the region. So, in this presentation, I'll walk through the major developments of the Ming Dynasty, its rise to power, its foreign relations, and the pressure it faced both inside and outside its borders. So, after the fall of the Yuan dynasty, several factions fought for control of China. Zhu Huanzang at first controlled the weakest of the three major states, but he strategically attacked the stronger state of Han. After 3 years of war, he emerged victorious and went on to found the Ming dynasty. The timeline of his rise is important. In 1365, Zhu's forces invaded the North China Plain and drove out the Mongols. By 1368, he had entered Peking, and Mongol forces were pushed back into Mongolia. Soon after, Zhu Wanzhang declared himself Emperor of China, establishing the Ming dynasty. When the Ming dynasty came to power, the emperor worked to establish himself as the sole ruler of China, superior and central over all the other states. To strengthen his authority, he eliminated the position of prime minister and rejected many of the international systems the Mongols had in place before he became the emperor. Instead, he demanded tributary relations from states along China's trade routes, including Korea, Japan, the Ryukyu Islands, Tibet, and much of Southeast Asia. This tribute system was meant to create a Confucian world order. It allowed for exchange of envoys, which were essential for diplomacy, and also helped regulate and facilitate trade. So, now we move on to Southeast Asia and Islam. One of the most important developments of this era was the spread of Islam across Southeast Asia. Muslim traders and missionaries were central to this process, with states such as Malacca emerging as key hubs of trade and religion. Islam's appeal lay in its strong commercial connections, its legal and social frameworks, and its ability to adapt to local customs. Instead of erasing older traditions, Islam often blended with existing cultural practices. To go a little deeper, to go back to one of the bullet points that I have, the 14th century marked the peak of the Majapahit kingdom. Its rulers made peace with the Mongols, opened trade with China, and secured markets as far away as Western Europe. Later, Parameswara, sorry if I mispronounced that, the founder of Malacca, converted to Islam. His conversion actually encouraged the spread of Islam up the Malay Peninsula and across the Indonesian archipelago, where it eventually became the dominant faith. According to tradition, his discovery of Allah was influenced by his marriage to a Muslim woman. So, historians also debate why Islam spread so widely in this region. In the textbook, some argue there were many contributing factors, but the scholar Kenneth Hall suggests that for some people, conversion may have symbolized autonomy and even resistance against the authority of Majapahit rulers. Okay, so now we move on to Ming China and the Portuguese. In the 1470s, the Ming dynasty achieved some military success against the divided Mongols. Though the Mongol threat never completely disappeared, a major relief for China came when the Western Mongols converted to Islam, shifting their focus away from East Asia. However, the Ming faced new challenges as well. In 1464, the Yao people of Guangxi rose up after years of Chinese oppression. Then, in 1517, a new force entered from the west, the Portuguese. They quickly proved themselves a threat, overrunning the Chinese proctorate at Malacca and challenging China's role as a dominant power in the region. And then at the end of the chapter, it explained how we're going to go to the next chapter after this part because China still doesn't see um, the Portuguese as a threat yet. So we'll get to that soon. Okay. And then for the conclusion, one of the most dramatic features of this era was the great naval expeditions led by Zheng He, which projected Ming power far beyond China's borders. At the same time, the Ming emperors successfully restored the tribute system, reinforcing their central role in East Asia. Neighboring states like Japan and Korea understood the underlying message of these actions, that the Ming dynasty was asserting dominance and could be a potential threat. However, while projecting power abroad, Ming China also faced pressure at home. Its resources were heavily stretched to maintain frontier defenses, especially against the continuing threat of the Mongols in the north. So now let's discuss. I came up with a few questions based off the reading and the PowerPoint. So my first question would be, how did Zhu Wanzang, despite starting with the weakest point, manage to defeat stronger rivals and establish the Ming dynasty? Because as we said in the beginning, there were eight factions that they had. Five of them were provincial, and then three of them were like the bigger states, and the biggest one was Han. So what do you guys think about how the Ming how Zhu Wanzhang was able to take control of the Han? And then my second question, how might neighboring states like Japan and Korea have viewed these displays of power differently than China intended? Because as we see, China does not like to be nice, play nice with its neighbors, and just wants to take over everything. So, how are we feeling? How do we think Japan and Korea um, would display these powers differently? And then my third question is, why did the Mongols remain a consistent challenge for the Ming even after their initial defeats? Because throughout the chapter, the Mongols, before the Ming dynasty came to power, they were constantly going in different areas of China, and the Ming dynasty was able to take over the North Plain, and the south there was still some Mongols there, but then over time it was just constant fighting, constant war. So yeah, so why did the Mongols remain a constant challenge for the Ming even after they had like that one defeat? But yes, so those are my three questions. And then okay, so that was the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully, this presentation helps you with your tea room discussion posts. And hopefully, I pronounced everything okay because it was a lot of new terms. So, thank you and have a great day.